All right, we do have SABC News reporter Khayelihle Khumalo who joins us live now from the Waterkloof Air Force Base right outside of Pretoria. Khayelihle, good afternoon. So you are waiting the first signs of the repatriation process at the base, which we understood was to take place late last night. Tell us what is currently happening right at this very moment. Any signs?
Well, certainly, Alicia, quite a very precarious process because there are more questions than answers in this regard. So we've just been speaking to our sources, really. The indication is that, it's quite a very long route, heading all the way to Entebbe from Rwanda, of course. It's about 15 hours. So now we do understand they are approaching this particular town in Uganda, and then obviously the process will be around offloading these mortal remains, but also we do understand you have some who are part of this particular mission in the eastern part of Congo. So as to the arrival time in South Africa, it's still anybody's guess. There's no indication because obviously, Alicia, there's quite a lot of paperwork here. It's a repatriation of a number of mortal remains. From country to country, also rules and regulations, they do vary. But so far, what you do understand about the significance of Entebbe is that it is a United Nations logistic hub in East Africa. So as you know, that there are quite a number of missions in terms of peacekeeping. There's quite a lot of instability from that region. So it's a very central point. But also we do understand that it's well resourced in terms of really making sure the mortal remains are well kept. But in terms of the actual transportation, will it happen today? Will it be tomorrow? Will it be on Monday? It's anybody's guess in this particular point. But what we do know is that there's a very clear indication from the South African authorities that they want to make sure that these heroes are given a decent send-off. We saw during the course of the State of the Nation address, where the Commander-in-Chief and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa declaring those 7 days of mourning, calling for and directing for the flags to be flown as half-mast, and really just clarifying in terms of the presence of this mission, that they are part of Summit DRC, the SADC mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but also as part of the UN mission in the DRC, MONUSCO, really just clearing the cobwebs around all just the speculations that were made, that perhaps they're there for certain interests.
Kaya, look, how will the receiving process actually work out? I understand that Home Affairs also has to be there to verify the remains, so it will be quite a while, even after they have arrived, that the families actually do receive the mortal remains.
An incredibly rigorous process, Alicia, because it's all about verification, the DNA test, to really make sure that they do match with the families. But of course, it's been a very agonizing time for these families where they've been waiting and relying from the authorities. But also what we know so far is that they've been allocated the chaplains, but also you do have the psychosocial supports, because it is a very traumatic experience where they've lost their loved ones. But all of these, Alicia, happens as we know that a very unprecedented session is underway in the commercial city of Tanzania. That's, of course, Dar es Salaam, where the leaders of SADC and also the East African community, they are meeting. They really just got off to a very high note where there was a very commitment for peace to prevail in the eastern parts of Congo. So a lot of them really denouncing the recent developments where we've seen massive offensive from M23 and the proliferation of many other militia groupings in the eastern parts of Congo, but also talking about the issues around the territorial integrity of the DRC and its sovereignty, but also a lot of the leaders, for example, the EAC chairperson and also the Kenyan president, William Ruto, saying this is a very complex and a very protracted, intractable conflict, but saying that the leaders must really rise to the occasion and make sure that they're able to come together and find a solution, because millions of lives are at stake. Already the Congolese, they've bore brunt of this particular conflict for the longest time. But also, most importantly, in this regard, Alicia, we do know that the Congolese president, Felix Tshisekedi, is not physically in Dar es Salaam, but DRC is represented by the Prime Minister. But we've seen that the Rwandan President, Paul Kagame, is there attending, especially when you really just look at how these two capitals, Kinshasa and Kigali, they've been exchanging all sorts of accusations to each other with Congo, but of course supported by the UN and other evidence that Rwanda is supporting the M23 rebels. But then you do have Kigali also firing back, saying that Congo is supporting FDLR. So in terms of Rwanda, they see them as really just terrorist people who are pushing for the unseating of the current administration in Kigali.
Now, Khayelihle, I mean, let's talk about the fact that we understand there's currently a meeting of the SADC EAC, the joint summit that is currently underway in Tanzania. As you've alluded, Tshisekedi is not there in person. I mean, let's talk about the agenda, particularly around whether or not this whole mission, not just around the soldiers, but if there's going to be a peaceful resolution that will be discussed so that all the troops that are there actually can start withdrawing. What do we know about some of the dialogue that might be actually taking place as we speak?
Well, Alicia, if you look at the foreign affairs ministers that has preceded this particular meeting, so they're very clear that obviously the cessation of hostilities, the ceasefire, those are very primary issues, but also calling for the reopening of the Goma airport so that we can see the humanitarian aid getting into the DRC. As you know, that the Goma airport is a very central point. For the longest time, the eastern parts of Congo has been facing instability. And that particular airport is very important in terms of the distribution of aid. But also another very key issue, I suppose, will have to be around the decision in terms of the way forward. Are they going to reinforce this particular mission? What's going to happen? Are they going to withdraw? Already we saw during the course of the week where the Malawian authorities, they said they will withdraw their troops. So what will happen to Tanzanian troops and their South African counterparts who are still in Sake, who are still in Goma, in their bases? So far, that's what we know so far. But a very key player also in this regard, Alicia, is the United Nations. So in light of the occupation of so many towns, and of course the main one, Goma, in the eastern parts of Congo. So the UN has been really facilitating, but also having these negotiations, especially with M23 and many other players in this regard. But also that has been the emphasis. I mean, you look at the previous meetings from the Southern African leaders in Zimbabwe, there was a very clear clarion call for engagement also with non-state actors as well. So leaders there, they are supported by the Nairobi process, which is very clear. It's led by former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, where around the issue of the armed groups, to have discussions as well, so that you can see also another process succeeding in this regard. Of course, that is the Luanda process. That one is calling for the diffusion of the tension between the DRC and Rwanda.